and they come in bigger numbers every year, and it never relents and never stops. And what's happening now is it's just totally changing the landscape of the country culturally, in terms of the language, our identity as a nation. And that's honestly bad for everybody that considers themselves an American, I think.
Nick Fuentes exposes how mass immigration is destroying America and leaves Adam22 and his panel in total silence. As Nick Fuentes gets called out by Adam22 for his views, and Nick responds with the truth of how mass migration is wrecking the identity and soul of the country. Let's get in.
You say race is real. Mm-hmm. They're going to take that as a dog whistle. I believe that's how they would use that phrase.
Yeah.
To indicate that you're advocating for race realism, aka black people are not as smart as white people and Asian people.
Well, that's not really what race realism is. And I know that Destiny and I've seen you entertain this as well. People say that I put on a certain face and I put on a facade and I disguise my real views. But I'm very open about my real views. I've been canceled for my real views. I've been canceled because I don't hide my real views. And when I say race is real, that doesn't mean black people are dumber than white people. It means that there is a reality to race which is both constructed and biological, in the sense that race is real in the sense that, like, you know, some people say I'm not white because I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish. But for the sake of example, you know, let's say I'm white, and that means certain things to me in a constructed way. You know, it means I have a certain nationality, and you could say there's a history there and there's a cultural thing. But you could also say there's a genetic component too. Like, white people have white skin. That's determined by genetics. And so race realism is simply the idea that race is a biological reality. Now, what you're talking about is these disparities in IQ, which someone who believes in race would say that disparities in IQ, well, IQ is a heritable characteristics. You would say that that's, you know, the difference in IQ between the races is a function of a genetic difference. It doesn't mean that blacks are dumber than whites. And by the way, you know, I brought up Destiny a moment ago because he's been popularizing this. He's been trying to say, oh, you know, Nick believes these things, but he's going to put on his good face. You know, Destiny believes in the same facts. He just doesn't believe in the genetic explanation, which is a legitimate explanation. He just doesn't tell you that.
Right. So, I mean, would you say that you've been smeared by the mainstream media or whatever as being more racist than you are?
Yeah. I mean, they lie about my views because, like I said, I'm very open about my views. I'm not ashamed of them. I'm looking for people to tell my views, and I could give it in the most extreme way. But people say things like Nick wants to live in a whites-only country, and Nick thinks whites are better than other people. And it's like, I don't believe those kinds of things. So, yeah, so I am smeared.
What is your overall opinion about African American people?
I think they're. What do you mean, my overall opinion?
Just off the bat, what do you think about black people?
I think they're good people. I love people. I love all kinds of people. I love black people. You know, my family goes back in Chicago like 4 generations. And so my family's grown up with black people, lived with and among black people for over 100 years. You know, my grandmother, she grew up in the projects in Chicago. My parents, they ran a security school on the south side of Chicago, South Loop. Where they train a lot of black people how to shoot guns and become security guards and cops and things like that. I grew up in the suburbs, so I didn't have as much interactions with black people as my parents and grandparents, but I think they're upstanding people. I like their art. I think they're talented. You know, I'm friends with a lot of black people. So,
but you would rather live in an ethno state and all the races just sort of stick together?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. Because the thing is that all countries have some amount of diversity. What I would say is I'm against immigration, because America's always been a white and black country since its founding. You know, when the United States was founded, or when Europeans began to settle, even though obviously blacks were brought over as slaves, when they were emancipated, and before that, it was a country that was white and black, and that is a dynamic that's changing in the last 60 years because of immigration. So I don't know that I would say like, oh, I'd prefer to. I mean, it is what it is. The country is what it is. I just want to stop immigration.
I can agree with Nick Fuentes in the sense that, yeah, I mean, our genetics determine the rest of our composition. You can't acknowledge it and get away from it at the same time by just saying everyone's completely equal. Like no, that's not how all that works. So if you're going to acknowledge genetics, then you have to acknowledge there are going to be differences in groups of the population. Like, I don't know how to what degree, I don't know how to exactly measure for it, but at the, even if there was, that's not going to change at the end of the day, especially if you're a man. What you have to do, you still got to get up, go to work, study, all that. Like, no matter where you were on a hierarchy, your life is still going to be the same, and you still have to live the same way. But I can also agree with the idea that, yeah, I mean, white and black people are both part of the foundation of this country, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the idea of letting, hordes and millions of people who are not part of the foundation of this country, who don't share in the values, who don't share in the history, I mean, they're not assimilating in, they're not taking on American values, American customs by far and large, and it is eroding the soul and identity of what America really is. But hit that like button and notification bell if you're enjoying the video, and if you want to help support the channel, check out the membership page for more, and let's get back in.
In what sense? Like, you just think that we allow people into the country too easily, or do we not allow the right kinds of people? I've heard that argument, that it's easy for like low skill workers to get into America, and that they sometimes make it hard for like PhDs to stay in the country.
It's just too many. That's the problem. Because the thing is, I guess I'll say it another way. I'm not necessarily against immigration, but we have now is like millions of people coming in every year, where you're getting tens of millions in a very short amount of time. And it's just changing how the country is fundamentally. Countries can have immigration. They can bring in, you could say, a lot of people without changing like the demographic composition of the country, which is what we're doing. We used to have an immigration policy for a long time where it restricted the immigration groups based on national origins, and we would let them in waves, so they would come in and they'd assimilate. What we had after the 65 Immigration Act and the 1990 Immigration Act is they just opened up the spigot of immigration, and the people come and they just don't stop, and they come in bigger numbers every year, and it never relents and never stops. And what's happening now is it's just totally changing the landscape of the country culturally, in terms of the language, our identity as a nation. And that's honestly bad for everybody that considers themselves an American, I think. So, I mean, we can have low-skilled people to address, the labor needs, or high-skilled people, depending on, what you need. But bring in, 100,000 people. Don't bring in like 3 million people in a year,
Right.
Yeah, folks, this is what Joe Biden and the woke left wanted. They wanted millions of unfettered people to just come pouring across. And this makes it harder for everyone else. Our tax dollars pay for them. It's harder for us to, now get property. The demand goes up, so it makes prices go up. It makes inflation goes up. They start taking jobs from actual American citizens who need and should get them first. No, absolutely not. We don't need all of these people making it harder for the people here to live. They're not adding to the country. They are now more of a liability, and they're not benefiting the lives of everyday Americans. But folks, thanks for watching. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought about what Nick Fuentes had to say to Adam22, leaving this room absolutely silent with the truth. Thanks again, like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.